Food Safety Strategies, A Path to Growth. The moderator is Katrina Onol. She is a policy lead in IFC Food Safety, Food Loss Prevention, and Food Fortification Advisory. I would like to hand over to microphone to the honorable moderator to moderate the next session. Thank you, Onol.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first panel session, where today we discuss several questions. First one is, what are prerequisites of successful food business, and why the implementation of best food safety practices and new technologies are worth to be learned by Bangladesh food safety industry, and also how can food safety be built to ensure efficiency to respond sustainability demands from the world. And also we'll discuss what tools are there for food business in Bangladesh to use to open new markets. So we are very lucky today to have international panelists. And let me start with Natia Mgeladze. Natia Mgeladze is a global lead in IFC Food Safety, Food Loss Prevention Advisory. She is Georgian by nationality, and she is based in DC now, in Washington, DC now. Natia has over 20 years of international experience working on food and agribusiness issues with private sector worldwide. Natia is a food safety lead auditor for such schemes as BRC, FSSC 22000, and she's international food safety trainer. Natia holds a PhD in medicine from Tbilisi State University, Georgia. So please greet Natia. I would appreciate your applause. Yeah, thank you. Our next panelist is Mr. Manzoor, who represents Bangladesh Food Safety Authority here. He has started his scientific career with Bangladesh Council of Scientific and Industrial Research in 1996. Since that time, he served in different positions in Bangladesh public sector. Mr. Manzoor is a pioneer lead assessor of Bangladesh Accreditation Board, and during, imagine, 25 years of career of a professional scientist, he has got his expertise in food microbiology, food safety, analytical method development and validation, laboratory accreditation, science and technology policy research. Mr. Manzoor published more than 40 scientific articles and has supervised more than 50 bachelor's and master's students for their research thesis. He joined Bangladesh Food Safety Authority in September 2017 as a member, correct? Okay. So we also have Sridhar Dharmapuri from FAO. He is Senior Food Safety and Nutrition Officer at the FAO Regional Office for Asia and Pacific based in Bangkok. He is a team leader in agriculture and food systems. Also, he is leading FAO work across more than 25 countries. And he is working on such issues as transforming food systems, strengthening core elements of national food safety systems, and implementing SPS measures and Codex food standards. He has doctorate in life sciences from the Center of Cellular and Molecular Biology, and the Master of Business Administration from Kansas University. So also greets, please, Mr. Manzoor and Mr. Dharmapuri. And we have with us also Mr. Zaki Zaman. He is a UNIDA country representative in Bangladesh. Serving since July 2010 as a country representative, he is responsible for guiding and overseeing technical cooperation, government and industry engagement and advocacy in many areas, including food safety. He is educated in agricultural marketing with PhD of Hokkaido University, Japan. And the last but not least, we have Mr. Jacob Morin from USAID. He is USAID Foreign Service Officer working in the areas of agriculture and private enterprise. He has helped lead the USAID Bangladesh Feed the Future Food Security Program since 2019. And also from 2015 to 2019, Jacob led USAID Economic Development Program in Eastern Ukraine. Prior to joining USAID, he served as the US Peace Corps volunteer in Madagascar, and he holds a master's degree in international economics from the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Chicago. Wow, what a panel. So let's greet our panelists. So the sole discussion today are around food, and we even have a famous chef who joined our forum from Australia, and you will be able to meet her this evening. I will start my question about the essence of any dish, and this question is addressed to all of you. So, is there a recipe for keeping food safe everywhere and at any time? If there is, what are its main ingredients? Maybe you could share experience from other countries, or maybe there is a formula that you are working in Bangladesh on this. So each speaker will have 3 minutes. Ladies first. Natia, over to you.
Thank you, Kata, and I hope you can everyone hear me. So we all remember, and that's how we are, everyone in food safety, like environment calling. Yeah, so that food safety is everyone's responsibility. It is shared responsibility. So when we are talking about that, we have in our mind that starting from consumer, of course, business operator, regulator, international organizations, everyone involved had their responsibility to make food safe. So also, even the general rules of the food safety, if it's not interpreted in the country context, then it's very difficult for the countries and their countries, the private sector representatives to implement. So always we should think to talk also with the private sector to understand the context and also the translation, the general regulations, general requirements on food safety into the local context. That is very important. So taking this into mind, I hope that it's possible to have food safe everywhere, but there is different things, and especially I get the important part, it is partnership. So partnership between the different stakeholders who are responsible to have food safe. I also want to here mention that in IFC, Kata, you know very well because you are together with the team working on that agenda, but let me also inform others that we are calling like PAP approach. That's how we named, maybe different organizations are naming differently. But we think that this PAP approach, which means that preventive, so prevention, awareness, and partnership. That is the 3 main pillars that is very important to have food safe. So prevention, we all know that mostly all food safety systems are based on the preventive risk-based system, which is HACCP, according to the Codex, and mostly all also international standards are based on these preventive systems. So we encouraging everyone to implement preventive-based systems. Another is awareness, and some of here in the audience also know that IFC and our team are involved to develop the thought leadership and different knowledge materials. You might, some of you know that IFC developed IFC Food Safety Handbook. 2 years ago was the 4th edition of the handbook, and that helps the private sector representatives to start implementation or review their existing food safety management system and build the new one as well. Additional to the different knowledge materials, what we are developing for private sector, last year we also finalized already mentioned food safety scan guide, which is the assessment tool giving the governments possibility to assess the public dimensions on food safety systems in the countries. So also additional to that, like a scan guide, we develop different training materials for private sector as well as for public sector representatives, which is all available in our website. I won't repeat, but it is on the slides which will be shared later to you. And the last, which is mostly important, that is the partnership. So discussion between the private sector, governmental representatives, different like international organizations to make sure that the awareness related to the food safety is spread to everyone. So that's mostly, I guess, for now, I want to mention
Thank you,
all.
Natia. Thank you, Natia. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Manzoor to share national recipe, since you are the person from Bangladesh who knows about food safety more than all of us here in the panel. So over to you.
Thank you for having me. It's clear, I think. So, if you want to talk about the national context, I would say that food, what is it? Food is actually, for me, it's a DNA of a country or DNA of a city. Because without food, you cannot expect anything. And food safety, for me, it's a culture rather than food safety management procedural system. Because if a nation, if a country do not have a food safety culture or very good food safety system, then it is very difficult to make it the food safety management procedural point of view. Anyway, food safety, if you consider, it starts from very beginning of food production until you are consuming in the table. So it's a very long chain. Everywhere you can have unsafe food for your, cultural point of view and interventional point of view. So food safety, as Natia mentioned earlier, that it's a shared responsibility, we know. So food producer has to be aware about the safe food production. Then it's coming to the post-harvest and storage and transport and processing and again transport and retailing and finally consumer purchase it, and then again in the family you have to proceed, you have to prepare it, and in the preparing stage in the table there is also some points then you have to make sure, otherwise food will be unsafe. So this is a very long and procedure. Everything everybody will not know maybe. So what we should do, we should make aware of the segmental people how they can do. And for this point of view, Bangladesh Food Safety Authority is working from 2015, you know. And recently we published a family food safety guideline. That is actually very basic things, how in the family level you can prepare food safe, you can store food safe, you can use refrigerator, you can use freezing system, you can use food, for consumption of babies or adult peoples or elderly peoples, everything. And for the production system and others, we need a lot of interventions actually. We need a lot of awareness programs, and Bangladesh Food Safety Authority is awareing people by basic messages for the production level. We also making inter-agency coordination to make sure that the production of the primary producers has to be safe. Let's say that Department of Agricultural Extension, we are coordinating, livestock, we are coordinating, so the safe production can be happen. And then the food value chain is also very important. We are doing food value chain interventions as well. A number of food related regulations have been developed, and also every time we are making awareness to specific your target oriented peoples. So this is going to happen now. And finally, I would say that Bangladesh food safety management, we are trying to make it risk-based, science-based. Previously, it was not that much risk-based and science-based. Maybe it was written in ordinance or regulations, but we are trying to make it science-based and risk-based. And for that point, we are trying to build our capacities in terms of, scientific capacity, analytical capacity, management point of view capacity. And in the morning, our honorable chairman already mentioned, we are doing a lot of collaborations and cooperations, not only in the international level. Also, we are making good stakeholder consultations and public-private participation, we again emphasize, so that we can make a good partnership between all the consumers so that the people can have a good and safe and nutritious food. So long journey we started, we are progressing. Let's say we will progress day by day maybe, and our collaborations, cooperations and activities will continue in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manzoor, for sharing the recipe from Bangladesh. And let me ask Jacob Morin about the same.
Sure. So Shubha Shakal, and good morning, everyone. I just want to once again thank IFC and BFSA for hosting this great event today, which is really important. Now, to answer your question, I think it would be difficult to come up with a food safety system to keep all food safe all the time. Even around the world, countries are always refining their food safety system to deal with emerging challenges and to make things better. But there are some common factors. One of the challenges is just food safety is so complicated. Getting food from farm to table is an incredibly long and complex journey that involves numerous intermediaries and lots of different stakeholders. And in Bangladesh, I think it's even more complicated because, I would ask most of you, where do you get your produce? You're probably not going to Shopno or Unimart. You likely go to a traditional market. And so when there's a decentralized traditional market, it's harder for the suppliers to have, control over the value chains and the quality of the food. That said, there are some basic ingredients, and I thought I would just highlight 3. So the first one is just standards. So standards are the bedrock of any good food safety system. By providing clear criteria and oversight of food production, food processing, storage, and distribution, standards help to ensure that food is safe and of good quality. Standards can also promote consistency and transparency in food safety practices and reduce the risk of foodborne illnesses for consumers. And I don't think that standards, there should be formal and enforced standards, but in other countries, USAID has had a lot of success in implementing just informal and voluntary standards at traditional markets. And that can help to incentivize vendors to take up best practices. The second one, which has already been highlighted, is just awareness and trust in the system on both the supply side and the demand side of the market for food. So on the supply side, producers need better awareness of how to incorporate food safety standards into their production and processing. And there's strong evidence in Bangladesh, for example, that many producers are using pesticides in too much quantity and inappropriately, and that impacts the safety and marketability of food. On the demand side, consumers also have a role to play, and that's been highlighted. Consumers need to know how to prepare and wash food, and as consumer demand for safe food grows, the private sector will have a stronger incentive to invest more in food safety protocols and standards. But on a more fundamental level, there has to be trust in the system. And we know in Bangladesh that there have been studies that have shown that consumers are aware of the benefits and are interested in safe food. But the problem is they're not willing to pay that extra 2 to 5 taka more for the safe food because they don't trust in the certification. So we really need to be building trust in the system as a whole. And the final ingredient is just robust private sector engagement. The private sector has a huge role to play. Strong private sector engagement is essential to enforcing the standards throughout the food system, but especially at the grassroots level with smallholder farmers. And the private sector can also help to build consumer awareness with marketing of food safety practices and related to food handling and preparation. So just to summarize, my recipe for comprehensive food safety includes standards, awareness and trust in the system, and robust private sector engagement. And USAID is really happy to be partnering with private sector partners, some of which are in the room, and the Bangladesh Food Safety Authority to advance these 3 areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. And Mr. Zaman, over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank IFC and Bangladesh Food Safety Authority for organizing this event and also inviting UNIDO as a panelist. I would like to point out the following. The recipe is to listen to the food industries and understand their need and support them to overcoming those challenges of food safety management. There are definitely WHO guidelines on this. Very simple way. These are keep clean, which my USAID colleague mentioned. Separate raw and cooked food. Cook thoroughly. Keep food safe and in right temperature, and use safe water and raw materials. Of course, better quality creates new opportunities, including export markets. But export markets is not everything, particularly if Bangladeshi people will not have access to that quality products. In terms of ingredients, I'm giving an example of UNIDO project, what we did in the shrimp sector between 2010 and 2015. We all knew that in 2009, European Union imposed ban on Bangladeshi shrimp sector because of the quality issues of the sector. Then European Union came forward and asked UNIDO if we work with government of Bangladesh to resolve the problem. Accordingly, we worked with Department of Fisheries and Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock Services to fulfill the requirement of European Union food safety standards. Basically, there are basic standards, and sometimes it varies from country to country. Country has its own requirements. They added their own requirements. Accordingly, European Union had their some standards. There was a question about the traceability of the shrimp. We worked with Department of Fisheries and developed a paper-based traceability system, and also piloted a good aquaculture practices. Then post-harvest areas on good manufacturing practices, HACCP, sanitation, regulatory reforms. There are feed regulatories, hatchery regulatories. We worked with Department of Fisheries to update it according to requirement of European Union. Testing and verification is an important area. There is conformity assessment. And you also need accreditation of those testing institutions. You need to work with Department of Fisheries for having accreditation of the laboratories, auditing, and also training, continuous training and education of the employee, keeping records and maintaining secrecy of the records, management of documents. We all knew the food and veterinary offices audit in every 3 years. When in 2015 they audited, they found the shrimp sector have entire processes, so they confirmed that the shrimp food safety standards in Bangladesh fulfills the requirement of EU. As a result, they withdraw the ban. Since 2015, shrimp from Bangladesh go directly to the retail market, and EU also withdrawn compulsory testing for the Bangladeshi shrimp at European Union market. So in short, if we follow the basic standards and also adapt with the standards of requirement of respective countries, we can overcome the challenges. I will stop here.
Well, thank you very much. Impressive story about shrimps from Bangladesh. I think that this is a good example for other industries to follow. So now we have Sridhar. I would appreciate your recipes since you have a broad experience, 25 countries. Please share.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting FAO to this very interesting conference today. So let me just add my little bit to the recipe, because almost what all the other panelists said are very much a part of it. So a food control system is complex. It has several players. It, of course, has the key ingredients, which are legislation, standards, laboratories, inspection enforcement, actions across the value chains, and, of course, the role of the consumer. So information, education, communication. So all these are elements which always need to be addressed and taken together. The second important thing is the context. Remember, we are in Asia, and we are in South Asia, which is probably the world's most thickly populated region. So we need to contextualize it here in that particular sense. And therefore, the development of a food safety culture, where food safety and good practices are incorporated at every step, not just in the value and the supply chain, but at home, at the workplace, in the office, and in schools. So that's where we really need to push more if you want to have food which is safe and wholesome and nutritious for most of the time. This, of course, goes through all well together with all the panelists have said so far. And also important to realize, and let me use a popular saying, the journey is the destination. Food safety never ends. You have to keep going, you have to keep cooking, and you have to keep boiling the pot. Otherwise, it will get unsafe at any moment of time because challenges are emerging all the time. So what we do from our organization, the Food and Agriculture Organization, is that we promote and we help to strengthen all these building blocks across all countries in the region. We work with government, we work with the civil society, and we work with the private sector to do this. And whether it's working at a high level, so for instance, we worked with the BFSA here. We are right now working with the governments of Sri Lanka and Cambodia to change their legislation and have a new authority in place, or whether it is to actually introduce food safety across fresh markets in several countries in the region. So our role is to ensure that our approach is participatory, it's inclusive, and it makes everybody a stakeholder in this region. One last message before I conclude. Let's not leave everything to the government. No government has resources anywhere, even in the richest of countries, to control and enforce food safety. It needs to come from all the players, and that's where the success of the recipe lies in the participation of all its players. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It looks like we have a great team of chefs, but I'm sure we will not compete with our prominent chef from Australia today. Anyway, the recipe that you shared are worth to be repeated, maybe the ingredients. So what I heard, it's first of all focus on everybody's responsibility. It's partnership at all levels with robust engagement of private sector. It's consideration of country context. It's focus on food safety culture, control over value chain, standards that should be updated, awareness, education, and One Health approach when working on food safety. And also, I just want to repeat a phrase by Mr. Manzoor. I like how you said that food is the DNA of a country. So it's really worth to remember. Food is the DNA of a country, and it's better that when this food is safe. So now, based on what I heard and what I understand, is that we need to learn experience from others to build a strong national food safety system. But to my mind, we also need to know how the system operates at this very moment, what are its elements, and also the way that was passed by the national food safety system to reach the level where it is now. And here, I'd like to invite Sridhar from FAO and ask you a following question. So FAO has broad agenda in Bangladesh. It has been supporting the country since 1973. So your experts witnessed the transformation of Bangladesh food safety system. Could you share about main transformations and also its main drivers, and maybe about barriers? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Kathy. So FAO has been in Bangladesh since the early 70s, soon after the country was liberated, and our office was set up here in 1977. And of course, for many of the first 2-3 decades, the focus was on achieving food security and to ensure that there was adequate food supply at an affordable price to all. And here's where the story of FAO's institutional support to the government of Bangladesh actually begins. So FAO and the government set up the Food Planning and Monitoring Unit in the Ministry of Food, which initially actually started as a mechanism to ensure price control of rice stocks. From there, it actually grew into a mechanism which now began to plan on nutrition and now actually has a food systems-based approach to the national food policy. But it was at this time that concerns about food safety began to grow. My colleague here from UNIDO gave the example of veterinary drugs and shrimps, which was which received wide publicity because it happened at an international level. But at the same time, within the country itself, there was a whole lot of concern. Then this was very visible in the press and in media reports about the increasing levels of contaminants and adulterants in the food control system. So at that time, we started working with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, as well as with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Food on a major capacity building exercise. And at that time, thanks to our donors, the European Union, the government of the Netherlands, and the USAID, more than $25 million were actually given to the government to build these capacities. And these were across all areas: risk-based inspection, laboratories, value chains, and actually working with a wide variety of partners, not just in the government, but also in the civil society and the private sector. And let me say that through those capacity building actions, we trained more than 2,000 inspectors on risk-based inspection, more than 500 scientists on food analysis in many laboratories. We helped to support the capacity, technical capacity in more than 5 laboratories. We set up the National Food Safety Laboratory in the Institute of Public Health. We reached over 200,000 farmers and value chain actors through our civil society, and we reached the entire country through our communication campaigns, both through Bangladesh television and through the NGOs. At the same time, the government decided that they really needed to modify the legislation. The old legislation was from 1967, the Pure Food Ordinance. There was a small amendment to it in 2003, where the National Food Security Advisory Council was formed. So the government then decided to amend and introduce a new law called the Food Safety Act in 2013. That was passed, and then in 2015, the board, or the BFSA, was actually set up. It started off with a chair and 4 governors, or 4 member directors. And then the capacity had to be built. Today, the BFSA has grown substantially. It has many more, hundreds of employees right now. A lot of the operational governance structure was then set up through those years from 2015 to 2021, when the FAO, and thanks to all the support of the donors, we supported the governance procedures. And today, you are actually, as I said, it's a process. Bangladesh has reached after 10 years after the enactment of the Food Safety Act, we have reached the stage where we can now look back that there has been huge changes from where we were 10 years ago, but now we can look forward to 2 things. One is, of course, a substantial increase in the trade, and we all know that Bangladesh needs to diversify its trade portfolio. So increase in trade, and that's why we see the private sector here. And of course, a lot of improvement needs to be made at the public health level and greater integration between all the competent authorities. So we remain here, of course, and we continue to support the government and as much as they need in the years to come.
Well, thank you very much for such a nice overview of transformation. And since these transformations are about Bangladesh, it's logical that my next question will be to Mr. Manzoor. In Bangladesh, more than 20 public agencies from 15 ministers are involved in food safety and quality issues. And most food safety and related activities are led by the Bangladesh Food Safety Authority, which is the apex body on food safety. That's not a secret that thanks to the effort of BFSA, other public and international organizations, the level of awareness of food safety and quality issues in the public and private sector in Bangladesh has improved over the years. And at the same time, the Bangladesh food processing industry has largely comprised with small, medium, and micro companies. But food safety incidents in Bangladesh often are associated with these small micro companies. So, and this is because of lack of expertise, because lack of knowledge, because lack of resources. From there, they could learn about how to implement and what they need to implement to improve food safety. So how do you think, what would help to solve this issue, and how BFSA could help to these small and medium enterprises to improve their food safety? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You rightly mentioned, actually,
I think that it doesn't.
I think it's working. So you rightly mentioned that the small and medium entrepreneurs of food safety processings are vulnerable because of, not only in Bangladesh, I think many other countries, these segment is more vulnerable than bigger industries. So this is the important issue for Bangladesh, because when you are talking about food processing, so food processing is a significant part of food consumptions nowadays. Recently and increasingly, the middle income peoples are increasing, and due to the change of culture, people are more and more consuming the processed foods. In this respect, the small industries are more vulnerable for food safety point of views. So Bangladesh Food Safety Authority is considerably focused on the small and medium entrepreneurs or medium industries. But the thing is that, first of all, there are many challenges in Bangladesh. The number is huge number of these, small and medium industries. If you consider very small food processing units, it's more than 2 million very small ones. But if you consider little bit bigger, small and medium entrepreneurs, it's little bit less. But the issues are that in that area, the food business requirements are not very well, legally well established. People can start a food business without having any training, without having very much legal food related requirements. So if he or she can have a amount of money, they can start business. This is one vulnerable area, because whenever you start food business without any training, that leads you to make some of the food, unsafe food production or food safety issues. And then when you are recruiting the food business operators, staffs, those peoples are not also trained, or those peoples are not also very much educated about food, safety. So these two is very important. And also another issue is that these peoples are not consistently working. They are migrating from one job to another job. So if you make a training, sometimes later they will change their jobs to other trade, and new one comes and he or she doesn't have any training. That is also a big problem. So we actually trying to focus how these food business operators or small industries can be registered with Food Safety Authority. So if we can make a registration process with this all, then we can have a database. We are planning to have a complete database so that we can understand who are doing what. And then we are planning to make a comprehensive training in this segment so that they can understand food safety and they can practice food safety issues. Even you are mentioning HACCP. HACCP is still a mandatory in Bangladesh. It's not a legally compulsory thing that some sort of industries has to be followed it. Bigger industries are following HACCP, ISO certifications, and many other certificates for their buyers' compliances. But in the small units, they are mainly focusing the domestic markets. In the domestic markets, demand of food safe is not that much. Those of the moderate price or lower prices foods demand. So that is also a big drawback. If the demand of food safe is not increasing, safe food is not increasing, then supply of safe food is also a problem. So we are trying to make aware people, as well as train the small and medium, as well as some regulatory requirements, so that we can make a management systems to those segments of the market. They can make a safe food, as well as the consumer also have aware, so that they can consume or buy food on some safety aspects. So this is the thing, and we considerably increasing our regulations based on our Food Safety Act 2013. These regulations also will help this sector to increase food safety. And another thing is, we are also making collaborations and talks with different kind of development partners or government agencies, so that the value chain investment can increase. Because without investing in the value chain, it is difficult to make their infrastructures and also their everything for a safe food production. So investment on these small and medium scale industries value chain is also very important. And currently some of the countries and other agencies are already came forward. There are some big value chain investment are happening in medium and small scale food industries. So that is also a thing we are coordinating and we are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Mazur. And we just have 10 minutes left. So, and I still have 3 questions to our 3 speakers. Well, I think that IFC, UNIDO, FAO, USAID could help on all the issues that you just mentioned, Mr. Mazur. And let me ask Zaki to share about VTPA approach. It's a voluntary third-party assurance program that could help a lot to make national food safety control system more efficient. Over to you.
VTPA?
VTPA, yeah.
Thank you very much. Please allow me to explain what is VTPA. We all know that private sectors are ahead of regulators because they mean business and they need to get confirmation that the food safety practices they are doing, this is complying international standards or not. For this reason, there is a certification schemes were created. And recently, this certification scheme is known as VTPA or Voluntary Third-Party Assurance or Program. Some of the developed countries realize that their companies are practicing those VTPAs very rigorously, and it is becoming widespread. So then the regulatory authorities, they realized that in the West, that they created a platform, public-private partnership with this VTPA regulator, with VTPA practitioners to get the data on food businesses and ultimately improve their capacity as an authority. As a result, competent authorities could improve their inspection practices and focus on their high-risk sector products. These are very important. With regard to implementation of VTPA in Bangladesh, you might be knowing in 2021, early April, IFC conducted an online training for Food Safety Authority. There was a session on VTPA and UNIDO conducted that sessions. And our realization is that VTPA introducing in Bangladesh, probably it's early at this stage because there are still a number of prerequisites needs to be fulfilled. For example, performance monitoring of the inspection and risk-based inspection practices and also wider use of VTPA is still not popular in Bangladesh, but this needs strong awareness program among the private sectors. If private sector come forward strongly, then definitely regulatory authorities will facilitate the process. I think I will stop here to clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Zaman. I think that this is a really good opportunity to continue this discussion with Mr. Manzoor after the session about VTPA and further collaboration between UNIDO and BFSA on implementation of this instrument here in Bangladesh. And now my next question is to Jacob. This is about new technologies. Considering your experience, how do you think, what kind of new technologies Bangladesh food industry should or need to focus on to become more sustainable and competitive at the same time? I appreciate if you would be short. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Okay, thank you very much for the question. So yeah, when we hear this word technology, I think we may be thinking like a software or a big machine, but I would argue that the most important technologies in terms of food safety are just the best practices. And that's where I think the private sector should invest most of their effort. And one of the key practices that's come up today is just the hazard analysis and critical control point system, or the HACCP system. And as many of you know, this is a food safety management system that helps with controlling hazards and ensuring quality of food. And USAID has helped a number of businesses in Bangladesh to invest in the HACCP system, and the result is that they've been able to increase their exports by 5 times. So this makes sense from both a business perspective and a food safety perspective. Similarly, on the production side, I think businesses should look into investing in global good agricultural practices, also known as Global GAP. And that can help with farmers producing quality crops that are safe and that are competitive in export markets. And we recently actually conducted a pilot with ACI Logistics to help farmers implement the Global GAP. And what we found is that, yes, private sector expertise and resources are required. And I see this as a win-win for both consumers and for businesses. On an even more basic level, I mentioned previously that voluntary and informal safety standards can be introduced at traditional markets. And then just looking at the world experience, we can see Brazil is implementing a new blockchain-based food safety tracking system that's helping with traceability and quality management. Rapid detection kits are another emerging technology that could be used at decentralized traditional markets to test for contaminants or pesticides. And even in our own backyard in Bangladesh, we know that there are some innovative farmers who are using drones to monitor pesticide usage and quality crops. So I think all of these things, but especially the standards and the management systems, are where private sector should invest their resources. I'll stop there.
So
Thanks.
thank you, Jacob. No doubt that all food industries, if they want to be compatible on international market, they need to focus on new technologies. But there is one more element which is crucial for any food safety system, and this is food safety culture. Natya, IFC has fantastic experience of working all over the world. And in my beloved Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova, in Asian countries, in Africa, we do work with companies. And one of the issues that we are focusing on is the importance of implementation of food safety culture. So please share why IFC is focusing on this issue so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Katja. So we all know here that food safety culture refers to the collective attitudes, behaviors, beliefs within an organization that prioritize and also promotes food safety. And we are absolutely sure that it ensures also safety and quality of the product if the company had the food safety culture implemented. So it starts with the commitment of the management, and that's what we are always prioritizing. That's why all our training modules for the private sector is developed so that we have special module related to the management commitment. So it continues with the ensuring that the staff and the employees getting the right training and right time. So Mr. Manzoor mentioned rightly that sometimes staff is leaving and then new people are coming. So ensuring that everyone takes the right time, the right training is very important. We are continuing with an explanation of clear communications internally as well externally, because communication share the information that's important to also build the culture in the company. And maybe last but not the least, that is that all employers of the company should be involved when the system's implementation is ongoing. So, we are now talking on firm level food safety culture, but I think that it's not only for firm level benefits when the culture is implemented, because it's in general also affecting the absolute national public health, correct? Because protect the consumer, also have the safe food in the system. That is what is absolutely affecting the public health. That's why we are also thinking that emphasizing maybe this importance of the food safety culture somehow in the regulation will also help to improve the food safety in the country level. Another is that you mentioned that we are very much interested, and most mostly all our materials, training materials or resources developed, which has the specific like module or session related to the food safety culture. Because we believe that if there is not culture, that we could not talk about the safety. So that's everyone's responsibility. Once again, I'm repeating, and that is shared responsibility inside the company as well as outside for everyone.
Thank you, Natia. And well, dear speakers, I enjoyed our discussion today, and I hope that the audience also enjoyed it. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being great listeners. We are here from different countries on this stage. We are in this room from different industries, from different sectors, from different agencies. But what I can say that food safety is connecting people. So thank you very much, and I would like to ask our panelists to stay at the stage for the group photo. So please come here in 15 minutes, and the second session will start in this room. Thank you again for your attention.